So the National Fitness Campaign, they actually reached out to David first, probably 2-3 weeks ago,
Yeah, we're about that.
with an opportunity or a request to see if East Grand Forks would be interested in applying for grant funding through their campaign, with the intent of having it be kind of the starting funds needed to build an outdoor fitness court. The total project under this group's estimation, and they would help us from the grant writing process through fundraising, recruitment of sponsors, all the way through the building and install phase of the court. The total estimated project is $120,000 plus some installation costs. I don't have a great number at this point of what that additional installation cost would be, but that's the way that their brochure that is enclosed in the packet described it. $30,000 of that would be available from a grant through the National Fitness Campaign, which they've already authorized per City Council's approval to apply for that. I think based on the fact that they've reached out to us and authorized it, that we would be highly likely to receive that $30,000 if we put forth the application. And then the remaining $90,000+ would be up to the city to either fundraise or fund locally. So really at this point, I think just looking to share the information with this group and get some input from each of you on if it's something you think would be a valuable asset to our community, if it's something that we could, you feel is reasonable or realistic to fundraise for, and if it could serve a purpose for us. There are a few communities locally, when I say locally, I mean in the Midwest of the United States that have recently installed them. Waite Park, Minnesota was the first in Minnesota to install it. They just opened it this summer. I think David will have some information from their city administrator on that one. And there are 3 other communities, one in each the state of Wisconsin, Illinois, and Indiana, that all National Fitness Campaign referred to me as people to reach out to as a resource that successfully finished the campaign and installed the courts to all were open this summer. I've left messages with their Parks and Recreation directors in each of those communities, but have not heard back from them. The only thing I do know is that in the same case as Waite Park, is they were all just open this summer. So we don't have great long-term information as far as the number of users in those communities or what type of use they see during the fall, winter, and early spring months. So leave it for any questions from that point.
One question I do have, so let's say that we move forward and say, well, our goal is to raise the money, fundraising. What timeline do we have once we turn in the application for the grant, get the money? How long do we have after that to raise the money?
David, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think that in our conversation, our brief conversation we've had, I don't think that there's been a specific deadline that we had to have the money raised by. I remember him saying it could be a couple-year process if it needed to be, and it's totally non-binding in receiving the grant dollars. If we say we want to put forth the effort and a year down the road we haven't had the pledges that we've hoped to have, we could go back to them and say it doesn't look like it's going to work for us, and there's no binding contract on our part. We could just simply give the money back to them, and they would find another community to use that in.
They did say their goal, their ideal thing, they would obviously like to see it constructed next construction season, if at all possible. They want to see a bunch of these move in, so they'd like to see it in a year, but they understood that it could take longer than that.
My concern here is we're going to be going to the well pretty soon for a possible update at the arenas, or maybe a possible another arena down the line. That if we start, we're going to be hitting some of the same people on this. Just a thought that we should be looking at that, because I don't want to be going to them, coming back to them in a year and saying, we'd like to get another $25,000 out of you for this or something like that. Just a thought.
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate you guys for bringing this forward. I think I talked to Reed about something similar to this in the past, kind of how to enhance our trail system. I guess I had a little bit different vision of what it would be, but this kind of falls within that bracket of using our trail system, getting people outside, doing more than just walking, biking, the ability to exercise outside. Wondering, obviously there's been you look at the map and there's a few places that are north. One thing to check into is how durable this stuff will be. Will we be looking at replacing stuff in 5 years, or is it 10 years, or is it 15 years? It looked like it was like carbon steel, but I don't know about like the flooring. I guess maybe doing some research into what that is. If it has to be this setup, like, do you have to purchase this unit, or is there alternate units that you can kind of create? And then I guess I don't know, this one talks about like an app and stuff, because some of this stuff is kind of, it's a bar or it's a ring, A lot of people that don't have familiarity wouldn't know, so they use the app. Is the app going to be free? Is it guaranteed to be free for so long? And those type of things are some of the things I would wonder about. But like I said, I appreciate this and I like the direction we're going with it. I don't think it hurts anything to start down the process. Wondering where we're at as far as the Altru dollars, if we have money left in that, if some of that could be applicable for that. Because that's the worry I have kind of on that funding thing is we've signed an agreement with Altru to be the named health and fitness provider for, I don't remember what the
Not a
language.
provider, a partnership.
Right, it was a partnership, and, if you go out for additional things, you couldn't name it, obviously, because it would be, unless it was all true, decided to throw some money at it or whatever, but that relationship could throw off. We'd have to look at the nature of that relationship and see if we'd be stepping on any toes if we're going out and finding more dollars or any of that kind of stuff. So those would be the concerns I would have are really just what our relationship is with Altru, what we have left in the bank through them, if anything, I don't know. But yes, but I like the direction.
Reed.
Just a couple quick follow-ups to that, a little bit of more information. The app that they have designed is free to use for anybody. When you go, there's information on these gyms that basically tells you how to download it from your smartphone, and it's all free. And so that'll have instruction of how to use the gym as well as workouts, so you could go through and select from a multitude of different workouts. In researching Janesville, Wisconsin, that has it, I thought it was really interesting on their website. They had a page on their city webpage dedicated to this fitness court, and they had scheduled activities with different departments in the city when they first started activating it. So it wasn't just Parks and Recreation, but it was the fire department was out there one day at 1:00, and the fire department was leading the instruction on how to use the gym. And the next day was the police department, and the day after that it was the Parks and Recreation department, and so on. So they kind of use it as a community engagement tool, which I thought was a really creative way to try to get everybody involved in how it all works. To give people that first, if they were interested, needed some instruction on what they were doing there, they could do that. We have not talked with Altru at all about this specifically, but because this is the first that anybody's heard about it at this meeting tonight, I would certainly think that it would be worth having that conversation with them. We have, in some of our discussions with the committee that we have formed between Parks and Rec and the Altru group, we have discussed this type of thing, though, not this fitness court specifically or this project, but the idea of having different workout stations along the Greenway Trail that somebody could run, kind of like Mark referred to. They could start by doing pull-ups, and they could run a quarter mile and do push-ups at the next station and so on as they go down the trail. We have discussed that with Altru and maybe a way to use some of the dollars that we've been afforded from them. The winterization part of it, when we were on the phone with National Fitness Campaign, they felt like there wasn't anything that would need to be winterized. It's all, because it's all stationary, at the very most that we'd ever want to look at is if there's a cable or something that may want to be removed. But they feel like it's a setup that can be used year-round. As long as you keep the snow off of it, people would be able to use it. no matter what. I don't know if I hit on all of those things or not. I guess maybe the last thing to touch on, just to Mark's questions, is this setup, the fitness court setup that's in front of you, this 38 by 38 square, this is what we would get from this group. If we went through this source, it would be a gym all-in-one setup like this. There are other avenues we could go if we wanted to do something different. Just about every playground equipment company in the country now sells fitness equipment to be used outdoors in settings like this. So if we wanted to do something different and set it sporadically across the trail, we could do that. I have not priced any of that out to see how that compares to what this gym compares, and I could certainly do that to have that as part of this conversation if we wanted to moving forward.
Mark, you have something to that?
Yeah, I think, I'll admit when my vision isn't the right one or might not be the right one, because thinking about this, it makes maybe more sense to have something centrally located. Because if you want to bring it back to something we've talked about in the past, is if you want to make it a connected type of thing where you're connecting departments, you're connecting people, creating a centralized location like this, for maintenance and all that other stuff, but it would be a gathering place. It would be that spot that you could have more connections. So I could change my vision to get to something like this, so I appreciate it. And has the board weighed in on any of this yet, or have they seen anything?
Haven't seen it.
Okay.
No.
Work off the Life Connected,
There you go.
That's what I'm saying.
Mayor.
We did briefly visit about this, and I like the idea of talking to some Midwestern communities and making sure that it's well utilized. What you wouldn't want to see is a city effort that was built and placed and never used or scarcely used. That we wouldn't like. But if there's a history of it in other Midwestern, I say Midwestern because of the cold climate, communities, and I love that it would tie into the Greenway. That's already a natural thing. We talked about maybe having this be where parents could do their thing while the kids played on some playground equipment in visual proximity to this. And I do think you'd gauge community interest a lot if you come through your Park and Rec committee, and then also on the fundraising. If the fundraising was brisk, to me that would suggest that folks would say, yeah, this is something we could utilize. And I do look at it a lot like the Sherlock Park Playground. If it is the local buy-in, the local investment from our community members as far as donated money and whatnot, it seems like that would raise the likelihood of it really catching on and being utilized. So if it was there and people were out there, good numbers of people using it, maybe starting in the early spring days and taking it out into the late fall, and if we get a confirmation that that's happening in other communities, that would be a big deal for me. I would like to hear that.
Mr. Murphy.
Thank you. Actually, I went to Waite Park on Saturday of this last week. It's only 15 miles from where our cabin is. So we actually went down and closed it out. And so when we were done, we took a trip over to Waite Park and checked it out. It's only been open there since August. And actually, when I went there to check it out, in the parking lot that serves it, there were two of the Waite Park police officers parked side by side talking to each other. So I just went up and talked to them and asked them what they've seen of it, and they, as far as usage, and they said when it first opened, they didn't see a lot of it out there. They think probably just because it was new and whatever. But they said as time goes on, they've seen more and more people use it. It's adjacent to the pickleball court, and they have a splash park right next to the pickleball court. And, so it's kind of a destination spot anyway. So they anticipate that it'll probably get used a fair amount in the summer. What they've noticed when it gets used the most is when they apparently have a fairly large pickleball league or something. So when they play, people are there playing pickleball, the spouses will be using this equipment. And they also see, young mothers and young families with strollers and little kids and stuff that will come out there. They'll work out while the kid uses the playground equipment, which is right next to it. So they said we'll see what it looks like for the winter. What I have a couple pictures of myself using it. If you're interested, I'll send them. I'm just kidding. But I do.
Not just sitting on it.
Yes.
Sweating.
In my coveralls and stuff too, because I was closing up the cabin. But it's heavy duty, it's powder coated, some of it's stainless steel. And the flooring it's pretty thick and it's pretty heavy duty, and it appears like it might be that porous material that's supposed to let that kind of drain through so it doesn't sit there. So it looked high quality, and it seemed pretty nice. And from like you said, from what I saw, the officer told me they said it's getting used more and more.
Is it permeable, or is it on like a cement slab and then you put this stuff on top of it?
It appears like it's, what they said, it looks like there's some sort of like a sand or gravel underneath it, so that the water can drain through.
The flooring material that you would work out on it's the same thing that they use in playgrounds. It's called poured in place rubber, so it's a safe surfacing if people would fall on it, but it's a durable material. We don't have it at any of our playgrounds. It's very expensive, but a lot of inclusive playgrounds use it because it's just much more durable. It's not something you're going to slip on or trip on like wood chips or rubber chips would be. It's called poured in place.
And the only reason I brought it up is because the discussion of utilizing in conjunction with the greenway, if it was anything other than permeable, and there might be other reasons not to put it on the wet side of the levee, but you couldn't even, you couldn't even discuss doing it if it was a concrete slab underneath it.
Sorry. One other thing that I thought about as we think about being connected, is this adaptable to like ADA standards, or are people, or is it going to be just for, 16 to 50-year-old, healthy adults that are going to be able to use this, or is it modifiable for ADA? Or, I mean, I know it looks like the ramps and stuff are all accessible, or you can get on, but
I guess I can answer that. I think in one of it might be in the video. Yeah, I don't know if it's in this part of it. In the video, they do show a disabled person utilizing it. I guess what I can tell you from what I saw of it, and again, I don't know what the legal requirements are, but with the body weight exercises and those type of things, where you can go in, you can see in there, it's pretty wide, so you could get, say, a wheelchair in there and do some of the stuff. But so I believe it does have a certain ADA compliance portion to it. Like I said, it must not be. It was in the video that we sent. It does show a disabled person utilizing some of the equipment.
and I guess to check, maybe contact Waite Park, the city, to see what exactly, if 90,000 was the total cost, or if they spent less or more, or plus if you build sidewalks out, or, I mean.
I did talk to, her name is Shauna Johnson. She's the city administrator in Waite Park. She's been there for quite a while, and I've known her for many, many years. So I did get her on the phone. I talked to her for about 20 minutes about this particular deal. She actually said that they utilized, they didn't actually do the full 30,000. They were able to fundraise a significant portion of it, along with the grant. She did say that the group that, this National Fitness Campaign group was very helpful in helping to solicit donations and working with them on that. And they did get a couple of large corporate sponsors that helped out quite a bit. So, so she said they didn't put in the full 30. They were able to fundraise more than that.
Anybody else have any questions on this? Or
I'm sure it wouldn't affect anything with our insurance carrier. No concern with that?
It's a good question. One I hadn't even considered. It'd be worth reaching out to them. Because it wouldn't be the same as in our parks and recreation activities where everyone's signing in a waiver and release before they participate. This would be a pretty open setting where I think people would just be able to come and use it freely. So I'm sure Ron would have an input, and that might fall under our recreational.
Well, I think it would be in your recreational immunity portion of the, unless we didn't do so, unless we were independently negligent on something,
Sure.
it should be covered.
So foreseeable for you, what is your next step and what are you looking for from us? Are you looking for anything else today from us? Or do you want, you have the questions that we have out there, is this, you do some more research and bring it back to us? And is that the main objective or?
Yeah, I'm kind of looking at David. I think we could certainly continue some more research and bring it back if this group wants that. We have a window. What's the window to apply for the grant? It's pretty flexible.
Yeah, I don't remember what it is. Yeah,
can't recall what
but it
it
was
was
it was
either.
fairly flexible.
Yeah.
Personally, how I'd like to see it move forward, if I don't hear any real objections from the council, I'd like to see what the what kind of buy-in we get from the park board here as well, and then from there do the initial application for the grant money. Like I said, it well, like Rita alluded to earlier, if it turns out that we just cannot raise the money, it just doesn't go forward. We don't get, you apply for the $30,000, they earmark it for you, but you don't get it until the point that you would be willing to start the installation. So if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But, so that's where I'd like to bring it to the park board, see if there's any real objection to that, or if we can get some good buy-in on that, and then I think I'd like to just move ahead and apply.
Everybody's fine with that? I'm assuming. All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved by Demers, second by Riepel. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion is carried. Meeting is adjourned.